So just hours before this show, I noticed that the CCP has put on the retaliatory countermeasure tariff 34% on all imported goods from the United States. This is following the April 2nd, the Liberation Day announcement by President Trump. And I wanted to ask you to comment, what do you think? The new tariffs, which is additional 34% tariff that Trump imposed, how would this strategically impact the CCP's domestic stability and the CCP's relationship with key economic partners in Asia and Europe?
So Ava, let me take this and I'm breaking some news here on New Federal State's show this afternoon. I've done the math, and I've also reached out to some senior executives. I happen to think, technically, that 34% is on top of the 20% that has already been imposed. I think these tariffs are actually 54%. Now, the Chinese Communist Party came out today with a 34%, countermeasure.
Yeah.
President Trump's already said, he tweeted out or he put up on Truth Social, they made a big mistake, they panicked, basically implying they should try to negotiate here.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things happening. Number one, we do know that Vietnam, so what happened during the pandemic with the potential decoupling, and remember, decoupling gets back to and this is the key point I want to make here in a minute, about the May 2019 Bob Lighthizer, Peter Navarro deal that took care of the seven deadly sins and integrated China into the world's economy. It would put decoupling aside forever. Wang Qishan and Xi had that was the first big One Belt, One Road conference they had, at which Putin showed up. At the end of that conference, being so convinced that the One Belt, One Road strategy was working and not having the collapse and failure of One Belt, One Road, was where we are now. But Wang Qishan, saying, hey, we should not, Li He has negotiated this deal, but if we sign this deal, and it was there to be signed in May of 19, the preliminary draft, then we will commit to basically integrate ourselves into the Western, really the global hegemon's economy that the United States runs. We don't want to do that. What happened is that they told Li He, hey, you've got to tell these guys the deal's off. We don't care how much you've negotiated, no deal. And then they declared the people's war against the United States. Remember, Xi declared that all happened in May of 2019. People should understand that May of 2019 is one of the most important geopolitical months for events in the 21st century. Also after that, as Miles Guo has let us know, that is when they actually came up with the plan for the Wuhan lab of the pandemic, which they would spread that virus starting in the military games that would take place that summer and fall. They made a determination right there strategically that, guess what? The Americans' deal is too much. It's too overbearing. It puts them in charge. What we think with Putin, we're going to announce later a strategic alliance above all others. But One Belt, One Road looks like it's working right now. We're not going to agree with the Americans. We're basically going to focus on consolidating the Eurasian landmass, starting in East Asia, but going all across the Eurasian landmass and including the Middle East and Sub-Saharan Africa. And we'll basically put the Americans out of business. That is, and we're going to really do it with Wuhan because Trump's economic policies had 2019, the fall of 2019 was when we were hitting on all cylinders. Right, we see today, I think what President Trump's trying to do is carve an overall architecture as he works with a rapprochement with the Russians. I think his pivot to the Chinese is the following. People got to remember, Vietnam just today went to Trump and said, hey, we're prepared to go to zero. I got to have a meeting with you right away. This is the General Secretary of the Communist Party. Vietnam and Cambodia is where a lot of these jobs, particularly lower value added jobs, went when they left during the pandemic. That's a huge give. At the same time, we had South Korea fell last night to a Chinese Communist Party coup that they used the judicial system to get out a candidate who was not great, but at least he was anti-CCP, was virulently anti-CCP. At the same time, they're doing a very sophisticated naval exercise around Taiwan. And they're essentially saying to people that follow this closely, we know the Seventh Fleet cannot come and defend Taiwan, and we want the Taiwanese people to know it because we're going to put in a very sophisticated exercise here to show the world that if we decide to put a naval quarantine around Taiwan, that we can do it. So in the midst of all this, for President Trump to do this shows me that I believe he wants to get back to the 2019 deal. I think he's looking to actually negotiate something with the Chinese. That's why he put out this tweet this morning. He said, you guys overreacted. You took the bait, right? You panicked, right? And so we'll have to see. But I would tell your audience, this is why you got to watch New Federal State of China, and particularly your daily news updates, which I think are the best in the world, to say this is going to be an hour-by-hour thing right now. East Asia, in that part of East Asia, could not be more on fire. It's so much more important than Ukraine right now. It's so much more important than the Middle East and Gaza. It's so much more important than even the Persian efforts to get a nuclear weapon. The most important things happening in the world right now are happening in East Asia, around Taiwan, in South Korea, around Japan, and all this is driven by in Southeast Asia with Cambodia and Vietnam. Vietnam, as you know, has a long historical hatred of China and the Chinese people. The Vietnamese people and the Chinese people have never gotten along, right? This is where I think they're going to kowtow. The Vietnam's going to throw in hard with the Americans and say, hey, we'll go to zero tariffs. You tell us what we want to do, but we don't want to get crushed economically, that we're in partnership with the West, and we will also help defend with the Philippines, the South China Sea. So, folks, the stakes could not be getting higher. And, hey, it was Miles Groh that told us we were going to get to this point, right? Everything Miles has told us is kind of worked out. If you go back and listen to the old tapes of Miles Groh, he was right on just about all of this.
Sign up for free and be part of the movement.
It isn't just an app. It isn't just a social media platform. It's a community.
Download Getter right now.